Matthew Paul Tissier was born on the 14th of October 1968 in the British Crown Dependency of Guernsey, the second largest Channel island, located 27 miles west off the coast of Normandy. He would go on to play 495 times for Southampton Football Club, scoring 189 goals and providing 57 assists. His comparatively meagre 8 caps for the England national team firmly cements him as the default answer to the question, who is the best England player to never have played in a major tournament? Matt Le Tissier is often cited as being a one-club man, defined as a player who played their entire professional career loyally with only one football club. Nicknamed Le God by faithful supporters of Southampton FC, Matt Le Tissier is not only undoubtedly a living legend in the eyes of anyone associated to the club, but also a living legend in the wider realm of English football. Viewers of a certain age will not have needed that introduction to one of the most culturally important players in English domestic football history. But for those under that certain age, or for those unaware of Matt Le Tissier during his playing days, there is, unfortunately, a possibility that you might know him from somewhere else. Post-retirement, Matt Le Tissier has taken to X to voice all manner of whack-job conspiracy theories. These have ranged from the comically absurd and humorous implications that the government can control the weather to outright nasty and damaging skepticism regarding historical tragedies that I won't repeat here. On the 9th of April 2024, a YouTube video was uploaded by the channel Tom Numbers Psych Club, aka Tom Sidney Bushnell, titled Live, Matt Le Tissier and Tom Numbers, Eclipses, Football and Numbers. In the video, Matt Le Tissier joins Tommy Numbers in front of a white TV unit featuring a Darth Vader statue next to a flat screen TV.
But they say inside the pyramid looks very similar to Tesla's work on how to time travel. Now, I can't prove that because I'm not an expert on it.
As Thomas Numerals discusses a barrage of increasingly insane and baseless conspiracy theories, from Donald Trump and time travel to solar eclipses, Matt Le Tissier slowly but surely starts to have a realization. Whilst in the presence of an actual psychopath, a man that calls himself Tom Numbers and preaches that a fantasized numerical sequence is actually a code that reveals the late, great Johan Cruyff is actually not dead and is still alive somewhere in a witness protection program, Le Tissier can no longer maintain a facade of interest.
You heard it here first. I have a feeling that Johan is not gone. That might upset people. It might give people a lot of hope. I think he's not gone. I think he'll be one that comes and shares truth later down the line.
Suddenly and horrifyingly, it dawns on Le Tissier that maybe this whole conspiracy theories lark, while a fun thing to post about on X occasionally, has all gone a little too far. Once the clip from YouTube had found its way to social media, football Twitter had a field day with it, in the way that making fun of ridiculous conspiracy theories is the easiest of field days to be had. How ridiculous is this? People rightly cried that a man has chosen to believe with such blind faith and lack of evidence these ridiculous and baseless theories, which obviously hold no bearing in reality. People at large mock Le Tissier and those like him for their nonsensical and potentially harmful devotion to conspiracy theory, misinformation, and lack of critical thinking. Unfortunately, the irony is that the same could be said for the vast amount of footballing discourse and discussion. in the modern game. Replace baseless theories about time travel, the Illuminati, and aliens building the pyramids with conspiracy theories regarding corrupt referees, a rigged Premier League, over-scrutinised VAR decisions, secret player PR campaigns, and the widespread generation of misinformation, and I begin to ask myself if it's really all that different. These days, talking about football can feel akin to being in front of a camera and sitting next to Tom Numbers. Conspiracy, misinformation, and blinding tribalism have all become deeply intertwined with modern football, and I'm beginning to think that, by now, not only is there no way back, but there's just no stopping it from getting worse and ruining the sport for generations to come. Just when you think that professional football can't get any bigger, it seems to find a way to. When compared to any other industry, even beyond the scope of sport, it's genuinely quite remarkable that football has found a way to continuously expand like it has without truly ever changing that much. Of course, there have been milestone moments, tweaks to the laws of the game, a breakaway Premiership top division, and expansion of intra-European club competitions. But ultimately, back in the 1800s, a team from Sheffield hosted football matches at Bramall Lane, and over 150 years later, they still do. Football's greatest asset is its ever-enduring way to not only survive, but thrive. New markets, new audiences, and new generations of fans still flood to the game that is played between 22 players attempting to kick a ball into a goal across two 45-minute halves, like it has been since its inception over a century and a half ago. There is so much that could be said across all angles regarding English football's transformation from humble grassroots beginnings to global television mega product. But in the interest of keeping this video a brief one, I'd like to simply focus on the new audience, the mania elite European football has now attained, and the hysteria that comes with it. English top-flight football is bigger than ever and has been introduced to a new group of fans that have only ever interacted with the game via television and the internet. Talking about the keyboard warrior, the online supporter, the Los Angeles-based die-hard fan of a team that represents a working-class city in the north of England, and whether or not these fans are legitimate or plastic or otherwise is a sticky subject that can be saved for another day. For now, I'm less interested in discussing the validity of these newfound supporters of the game and more concerned with how the hyper-partisan, supercharged, feverish, unwavering online discourse that comes with them has changed the game forever. Football is a game that is refereed on vibes and a feeling. It always has been and it always will be. There will never be enough words written in the right order to cover every single interaction in a sport which is so full of permutation. Putting your arm across an opposition player to slow them down is okay, as long as you don't use too much of your arm, as long as you don't hold on for too long. How long is too long? How much of an arm is too much of an arm? It can't be quantified and it can't be ruled without some level of controversy and grey area. Players trip over each other, a boot catches a toe, arms go up as two players jump to contest a header. Players hold each other and tug shirts and grab arms. Knees clash. A player's studs can be up or down or neither. Players delay restarts, waste time, deceive, and dive. And all of it has to be taken in context with the flight of the football, the speed of an incident, and the area on the pitch in which the possible infringement takes place. The rulebook knows this. The laws of the game, despite being 230 pages long, is still full of phrases like referee's discretion, interfering, promising attack, and reckless manner. There are 51 incidences of the word deliberate alone. How much interfering is too much interference? What specifically constitutes as a promising attack? How do you quantify with words and in black and white what counts as reckless? How are you supposed to determine precisely and consistently what is deliberate and what is not? You can't. And part of loving the game is accepting that fact. There have always been controversial refereeing decisions that fans have felt angered by, but in a bygone era, once it was done, it was done. Truly egregious examples might stick around for longer, mentioned in the newspaper the next week and spoken about on the concourse before the next game, but never really longer than that. Before VAR, titles and trophies used to be won and lost on wrong offside decisions and bogus penalties. I mean, in 2009, Sunderland beat Liverpool with a Darren Bent goal which deflected off a beach ball that had rolled into the penalty area. This has kind of become an iconic Barclays Premier League moment, and I can't even imagine what the fallout would be if something like this happened in today's game. Referees have always been hated and maligned, but I truly believe that on some deeper, possibly subconscious level, that the average fan understood that an overwhelming number of decisions in any given football match could conceivably be argued either way, and ultimately, that's football. This is categorically no longer the case. An old ancient proverb once said that football is a game where 22 men chase a ball for 90 minutes, and in the end, the Germans always win. I think this needs an update. Football is now a game where 22 men chase a ball for 90 minutes, and then everyone takes to the internet to post out of context screenshots from a dodgy stream of an incident that they feel was wrongly given by the referee as evidence of a traitorous robbery of 3 points, or worse, evidence of a league-wide corruption to thwart their football club. Actually, maybe mine is slightly less catchy than Lineker's. Now I've said it out loud. Let's just stick to his one. The wonderful advancement of the internet means that anyone can stream a game from the English Premier League from absolutely anywhere in the world. But with it comes a new wave of modern fan who have only ever interacted with the sport via this medium. Not only are the games available through legal means or otherwise to every single person on the planet with a stable internet connection, but screenshots, GIFs, and clips are also generated immediately and reposted on social media before the TV broadcast has even run a replay, let alone before the game is finished, and let alone until match of the day at the end of the weekend when everyone has had some time to digest it all. And hence, we have a new dichotomy in the game, because how can you both have laws in the sport that are subject to interpretation, grey area, and referees' discretion, while simultaneously overanalyzing every single incident the moment that they occur? This is not to say that all referees are saints who have never got a decision wrong, perfectionists who have never made a howler. Of course, these still exist, as they always have and always will. But any sense of nuance in evaluating decision making on a football pitch has now been completely eroded by a scorn of online armies who take it upon themselves, as if it is their mission as a fan, to quickly grab whatever clip, GIF, or screenshot they feel shows that their team has been slighted, wronged, or robbed, and to post said evidence as quickly as they can onto social media. bring on the ensuing meltdown. Watching a game live in a stadium and then taking a peek at the reaction over on X or the comment section on YouTube, The Athletic or Reddit gives such severe whiplash it can feel like you've been in a car crash. The amount of times an incident, viewed from the perspective of my seat in the stadium, looks like absolutely nothing controversial, only to go online after the game and find hordes of people ferociously throwing their toys out of the pram about it, is nauseating. In the ground, you don't even see the incident, or maybe you just quietly acknowledge that something may have happened, but clearly it was no big deal. But online, an entirely different battle is taking place. You see, someone has recorded a clip from a stream, zoomed in on the footage and slowed it down to show that when the defender blocked the ball, it actually flicked up off his chest and grazed across his forearm. Good God, we've been robbed. It's the smoking gun. It's evidence of total incompetency of every referee in the land and the body that governs them. It's evidence of a total conspiracy against my football club and the dark powers above pulling the strings behind the scenes to personally and systematically keep us down. Decisions can no longer simply be taken in good faith. There is no longer a nuanced thought that the decision could have gone either way and we happen to be on the wrong side of it, or that the referee has simply missed this one, like we all did in the stadium. One out of hundreds of decisions he'll have to make in a single game. But it doesn't even stop there, because not only does every refereeing decision from the game get clipped onto X, but footage of any other controversial decision from the last 10 years is available as well to add fuel to the shit fire. Why was Exhibit A given as a foul but Exhibit B was not? To conclude the point I'm making, let's quickly work through an example. Just for the record, because I know I'll get comments about this, I'm going to talk about Arsenal now and at various other points for the remainder of this video, simply because I am an Arsenal fan and therefore am exposed more frequently to all things Arsenal. I am not part of a conspiracy against Arsenal Football Club, although maybe that's what I want you to think. On the 19th of October 2024, Bournemouth hosted Arsenal in the Premier League. At minute 30, Saliba clumsily brings down Evanilson, who is running towards the Arsenal goal. This was adjudged under the video assistant referee's interpretation and discretion to be a goal-scoring opportunity, which Saliba has denied, and so, after a review, the punishment was a red card. This is just one of many decisions out of hundreds that occur up and down the football pyramid every weekend, where you could make a reasonable argument for or against the perpetrator. Let's face it, it's neither a solid yellow or a bright red, it's somewhere in between. It's an orange card, but there's no longer room for this line of thinking or that level of nuance. We first have the initial wave of outrage from fans who now find themselves a man down. It's a disgrace, it's a joke, it's incomprehensible, it's evidence of corruption. All things which are easier to say and to feel when you already believe the world is out to get you and your team, and that referees are incompetent non-humans not worthy of leniency. But it doesn't stop there, because now, thanks to the wonders of social media and the internet, someone has dug out a clip from Arsenal v Bayern Munich in the Champions League on April 12th, 2024, a game that had taken place 193 days beforehand, which shows Ben White's recovery pace as he tracks back against the on-rushing Leroy Sané. This post has 3.2 million views, which is even more than the original posted by the official Champions League account, and I'm willing to bet even more views than the TNT Sports UK television coverage of that game. And I don't even think this is the first repost of the video in relation to the Bournemouth game. I think this is a repost of a repost. There were hundreds of other posts exactly like this one. Aha, we've got them. How can you give Saliba a red card with the argument that no Arsenal defender was in position to catch the goal-bound Evanilson when Ben White has proven previously that he can catch the presumably quicker Leroy Sané? Yes. How could video assistant referee Jared Gillett not have in his mind a Champions League match that he didn't officiate 193 days ago when making his decision to overturn Rob Jones's yellow card to red? It's corruption, I tell you. All you have to do is ignore the fact that these two games were refereed by two different referees in two different competitions, almost 200 days apart. Also, just ignore the fact that these instances aren't even that similar. Look at the areas of the pitch they occur, the location of the forward, and the proximity of the Arsenal defender. They look similar, yeah, if you want them to look similar, but any sort of closer inspection or introspection reveals that it's entirely plausible that the ruling on these two incidences do not necessarily contradict one another. And even if they did, referees interpret the game differently, think differently, and are advised to act upon their discretion. So it wouldn't be proof of anything, even if they were identical down to the detail. Misinformation is spread without the time or inclination for verification. Worse still, misinformation is not only spread to bait engagement by grifters too unlikable to ever hold down a real job, but is spread to push whatever narrative those involved want to be pushed. Recently, some unsettling videos of Premier League referee David Coote were leaked online, showing him awkwardly sitting on a sofa next to an equivalent of a human scrotum as he incrementally rants about hating Jurgen Klopp and Liverpool Football Club. If you're watching this video, I know you've seen it. At the time of writing, Coote has been quite justifiably sacked from all refereeing duties. English football was ablaze for a weekend with discourse around corruption and incompetence, yet another bullet from yet another smoking gun that was undeniable proof of a coordinated effort to take down a football club, this time Liverpool FC. In reality, all the video really proved was that David Coote was a sad and broken man, unable to cope with the treatment and pressure being a Premier League referee entails. You don't have to play the world's smallest violin. You don't have to feel sympathy for him. But ultimately, that's all it is. Of course, that wouldn't stop people from trying to spin it otherwise. Within minutes of the video hitting the internet, posts regarding a potential handball incident involving Manchester City's Rodri in a match against Everton on the 26th of February 2022 started to circulate, attributing the decision to not give a handball as one Coote was directly involved in. Other popular posts include a reminder of an incident involving Doku's high boot on Alexis McAllister in the game between Liverpool and Manchester City on the 10th of March 2024. Another incident adjudged to not have been given Liverpool's way by David Coote. The pile of evidence is mounting. The problem is, David Coote was not the referee or on VAR duty for either of these incidents. These decisions have nothing to do with him. The simplest and quickest of fact checks proves that this was misinformation spread to spin a narrative. But who's got any time to fact check? Within minutes, these posts and many similar were spread across the internet like wildfire to be viewed by millions. A look at the actual data shows that Liverpool's record under Coote was actually pretty good. There's no hard evidence to show that Coote, despite the words directed towards Klopp and Liverpool, manifested into any statistically relevant bias. It's a similar story elsewhere and across different fan bases. After John Stones bundled in a 98th minute equaliser at the Etihad against Arsenal, there was a big meltdown online regarding the length of extra time that was awarded and how it was all clearly a ploy by biased and paid off officials to give City as much time as possible to scupper Arsenal's away victory, only for statistics provided by Opta to show that Arsenal had the second highest average time of delay in the league and that David Raya took a total of 9 minutes and 4 seconds taking goal kicks alone in that game. If anything, 8 added on minutes was not enough. Maybe Stones could have gone again and got the winner. I've mentioned the likes of Arsenal and Manchester City throughout the video, but frustratingly, this epidemic isn't unique to one or two fan bases who are prone to losing their heads. It seems every single club in the league is at it, at least when conspiring about the likes of Barcelona, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich or the Premier League Big Six. There's at least a thin veil of a potentially valid theory that the big clubs are protected because they bring their respective leagues the most revenue. A totally baseless one, but at least one that makes some sense in some theory. But now, it's every club. Go onto X and search for any Premier League club followed by the word corrupt. You won't find an exception. No offence to any supporters of Wolverhampton Wanderers who might be watching, but honestly, who cares about Wolverhampton Wanderers? Do you genuinely think that if the league was corrupt, it would even affect you? Am I supposed to believe that the Premier League leadership team got together in a secret covert meeting to pull the strings and ensure that Wolves finish 15th this season and not 14th? So, the big game has come and gone. Refereeing decisions have been pored over before, during and long after. Fan bases have twisted data to spin narratives, posted screenshot after screenshot of a defender clipping legs with an attacker, and those in return have dragged up similar incidences from games long in the past to argue whatever point they are adamant they must make. In modern football, fanthink doesn't just feature conspiracy and distrust, it centres around those topics, and they extend further than just the action on the pitch. Because once you've taken the proverbial red pill, woken up from the matrix and bought into the idea that the big, powerful forces at B are pulling the strings behind the scenes to the detriment of your football club, why wouldn't you continue thinking this into other aspects of the sport? Not only are the federations and the referees and the leagues biased and corrupt, but so are the media. Every reputable sports news outlet, and by proxy every reputable sports journalist, has come under some flack from one fan base or another accused of bias, agenda and unfair scrutiny. For example, let's take this Athletic article written by Tim Spears, in which he argues that the rule which allows yellow card suspensions to be applied across both Premier League and the League Cup is unjust. He uses Leandro Trossard as an example of a player who was sent off in a Premier League game against Manchester City but served his one-match suspension in Arsenal's League Cup match against Bolton Wanderers, meaning he was able to help Arsenal beat Leicester City in their very next league match. An argument against a red card suspension received in the Premier League being able to be served in the League Cup. That's all the article is. It's a fair enough reason to write an article and an interesting argument if you so happen to find it interesting. But of course, like everything else, we can't have nuanced thinking or open minds when it comes to football discussion. The article was quickly picked up by Arsenal fan Twitter and strangely perceived as a weird attack on the club, despite the article not even really being about Arsenal, as Leandro Trossard was just used as an example of a long existing law that the writer has an issue with. The post garnered 1.9k retweets and 1.7k replies at the time of writing. Look at that ratio. You know shit has gone down when you see a ratio like that.
You guys have a problem only when it's Arsenal and want to change the age-old rules. Where was this same article when Rodri missed the Carabao Cup clash with Newcastle United after getting a red card against Nottingham Forest last season? This is pathetic journalism.
Steve Medley last week, now this rubbish. You guys are treading a thin line to becoming gutter press.
Unsubscribe from Athletic. I'm urging more Arsenal fans to do so rather than just responding to the tweet and doing nothing.
Actually, fuck off. You lot have the maddest agenda against Arsenal. Are you sick in the head?
Oh, this is pathetic to even read, you shameless scums. Has everyone gone insane? Is everything all right at home, lads? There's only one pathetic response here, and it's not the article. The Athletic is not the only outlet to feel the scorn from waves of online armies taking personal offence to journalistic opinion. Max Rushton, formerly of Soccer AM and currently of TalkSport and writer for The Guardian, outlines as much in an article for the publication. He shares how he received a wave of social media abuse following a 1 minute and 9-second clip of the Guardian Weekly Football podcast being posted on X, in which he gives an opinion regarding Saliba's aforementioned red card versus Bournemouth.
They've dropped points in 3 games this season. In all those games, they've had a player sent off. 3 red cards in 8 games. I think they've had 5 more than any club since Boxing Day 2019. But when we're talking, as we always do with Arsenal, on the fine margins of 3-4 points, this could cost them the title.
But those 3 red cards, 2 of them are for kicking, second yards for kicking the ball away. One of them is whatever Trossard was trying to do, and then Saliba panicking. And if he just lets him go, just chase him and try and catch him up. Evan Nilsson's got 50 yards to run before he's going to shoot.
Once again, I have to stress that you don't need to like the Athletic article. You don't need to agree with Rushton's opinion on a red card. All I'm asking here is that there is an acknowledgement that not everything is black and white, right and wrong. People can make mistakes. People can have opinions that you disagree with. Decisions can be borderline, and your club may happen to be on the wrong end of a few, and that it isn't always part of some organisation-wide agenda against your team. There are so many football conspiracy theories and accepted cliches that are just repeated ad nauseum by everyone involved in the game that don't hold up to a single second of scrutiny if you just engage your brain and think about it. How can the Premier League and the PGMOL be under the thumb of Manchester City and will actively and cleverly use their powers to ruin anyone else's chances of contending for the title, and that same organisation is also charging Manchester City with 115 breaches of financial doping and are currently in a years-long legal battle in an attempt to get them expelled from the league? Seriously, how can both be true? Why would the Premier League try to actively rig their league to hand the title to a club they are actively trying to take down? Just think about it. How many times do you hear the sentiment about how only players who play for the Big 6 Premier League clubs get picked for the England national team? Gareth Southgate and his big club bias. Here's a post bemoaning Lee Carsley's decision to call up Dominic Solanke for the October international window after he moved from Bournemouth to Tottenham Hotspur as a, quote, obvious illustration of the bias involved when selecting these squads. This post has over 5,000 likes, over 200 retweets. My guy, in the same squad selection, Carsley also called up Morgan Gibbs-White and fucking Angel Gomez. Not only do these two not play for the Premier League Big 6, but Gomez plays for a mid-table club in France. The Uber Eats Ligue 1 doesn't even exist. It's not real, and yet here's Gomez on the squad sheet. Declan Rice has been in the England squad long before his move to Arsenal, and Pickford plays for Everton and has been a mainstay of the England team for 6 straight years. There are so many of these frequently repeated, nonsensical adages that I can't cover them all without making this video even longer than it already should be. Player PR campaigns, a rigged Ballon d'Or, Sky Sports deliberately inflate transfer fees when reporting on certain clubs, Live VAR Pool, UEFA Lona, penalty to Madrid, Carragher and Neville are mouthpieces for Howard Webb, all the referees are from the Manchester area and support Manchester clubs. If you're an English player, you're given preferential treatment by the officials. The list goes on and on. The rush to post first, think later, or never has brought with it an era of misinformation and distrust, the likes of which the game has never before seen. This era of late-stage internet drives misinformation and hatred more effectively than it does anything else these days. And not only does it seem that being a fan of the sport requires you to get involved with this, but also that no one can seem to rise above it even if you wanted to. I feel like every time he's away on international break, he scores a free kick, said Jamie Carragher recently when discussing Liverpool midfielder Dominic Szoboszlai while on commentary for their match versus Southampton in November 2024. The problem? Szoboszlai hadn't scored a free kick for Hungary during the November international window. You see, it seems that Carragher had been successfully baited by a popular video being shared on X at the time, which featured Szoboszlai scoring a direct free kick for Hungary, claiming to be from a recent international match against Germany, when in reality it was a re-upload of him scoring against Bulgaria from 2 years prior. It seems that no one is safe from this sort of thing. I'm aware many of my arguments so far can be rebutted with a demand to log out of X and go touch grass, advice that only gets more astute with each passing day. But what may start on X, hawked by anonymous accounts with thousands of followers and a famous professional footballer chosen as their profile picture in an outwardly public display of their strange parasocial relationship, simply doesn't stay on there. In the past, you may be cornered into hearing a ridiculous take from the weird bloke down the pub or stood behind you in the ground, but at least that's where it stayed. Social media is so ingrained in sport, as it is in life, that even those who are paid to remain professional and impartial can't escape it. I don't really blame Carragher for being duped by the Szoboszlai free kick video, because if you're on the internet, you're misinformed, and if you're not on the internet, you're uninformed. Pick your poison, but for many, they simply can't afford the latter. All discussion surrounding the beautiful game, whether online or off, is completely swallowed up by whatever furore is occurring on the internet. It's a vicious cycle where armies of online fan bases whip themselves into a frenzy, and then traditional sports news outlets pick up on the story and report it on to millions of readers who trust them, causing a butterfly effect of further head loss. Soon, it's all everyone is talking about. In many cases, the news outlets do their due diligence, research, provide nuance, and often debunk the story within the articles, but that information is purposefully left out of the headline, and really, who has time to read a whole article in 2025? A great example of this occurred during the spring of 2023 when football Twitter was abound with posts regarding the implementation of a revision to the offside law. Theorised by Arsene Wenger, the new offside law would state that if any part of the attacker was level with the defender, that would now be deemed as onside. And this new offside law would be trialled in the Netherlands, Sweden and Italy next season. Huge news with massive ramifications on how offside works. This new offside law would literally change the way the sport would be played forever. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Everyone online is talking about it, and surely it won't be long until the Premier League adopts it, if it's already in Italy. Hey look, here it is being reported on by an account on X. This post has 330,000 views. Here is the same post, copy and pasted, by another account. This post has 3 million views. Here is a post on the Inter Milan subreddit by a user confused about this new law being implemented in Serie A next season. Here is an article from The Sun with the headline, Italian FA trialling major change to offside rule. But if we dig a little deeper, all is not what it seems. The new offside law was trialled along with many other law changes that are commonly trialled by the IFAB in the Italian Under-18s Championship for a few matches in 2023. That's it. Since then, there's been no further update, and there are currently no plans to change the offside law in professional football anywhere in the world. To be fair to the Sun article, it does clarify this in the body of the text. But firstly, everyone gets their information from X, and secondly, as already said, no one is reading past the headline anyway. For a more recent example, a popular video was circulated online of a frustrated Pep Guardiola interacting with a fan who was taunting him following Liverpool's victory over City at Anfield. I've had conversations with several people who have asked me if I've seen the video of Guardiola losing his head over City's recent run of terrible form, only for it to turn out that said video was not recorded directly after the Liverpool game or even from the same season, and instead was taken following the aftermath of last year's FA Cup final. English football has become too big, too lucrative, and too exploitable, and the role of the football fan is slowly changing in response. To me, it seems like many football fans see it as their duty to engage in this sort of rhetoric, both online and off it. No longer is being a fan about buying a ticket, going to the match and making some noise. Clearly, to many, being a football fan is about drinking the Kool-Aid, joining the echo chamber, and blocking out reasoned and balanced thinking. It's you and your club versus the world, goddammit, and everyone is out to get you. Any statistic you see online is wrong and needs to be argued against. Every refereeing decision against your team is obviously corruption. Every journalist or media outlet who dare utter a critical word in your direction are biased and paid off and are personally attacking you, your club, and everything you've ever believed in. And if you refuse to wear the tinfoil hat and engage in all of this, then you're not a real fan. Because this is what it means to be a real fan in the age of modern day football. It's telling that underneath that Athletic article written by Tim Spears about Leandro Trossard's red card are several posts from people tagging the Athletic's Arsenal correspondent James McNicholas. At Gunner's blog, have a word with him please, mate. James McNicholas is a professional football writer along with his colleague Tim Spears and isn't interested in any of the childish tribalism raging on in the post replies. James McNicholas is not a fucking baby and is capable of reading an article to understand the full context and is not going to have a word with his colleague because of a harmless article that others have wrongly perceived to be an attack on Arsenal Football Club. Oh, let's tag the Arsenal correspondent. He'll be on our side. He gets it. He knows that it's all a giant conspiracy organised by the Athletic to run our club's name through the dirt. I don't think so, guys. I really don't think so. Which brings us on to the final piece of the puzzle, and that's the clubs themselves, represented by the manager and the players. There are very few examples in the whole of football history where a winning manager has lamented a refereeing performance in his post-match interview. If the team wins, the manager states that the referee made all the right decisions, and if the team loses, the referee made none. This is an obvious, deliberate and savvy tactic used by managers to take the pressure off themselves, off their players, and to distract from bad performances. Everyone in the game knows this. The issue is that most fans do not, And so fans feel slighted by refereeing decisions, they listen to their manager, who states the same, and the siege mentality among the fan base is embedded further. This sort of thing used to be classic Jose Mourinho, but in all honesty, now it's the blueprint for every manager, every club, and every fan base up and down the Football League. The fact is, there are many avenues and opportunities available for professional clubs in the Premier League to voice grievances if they feel sufficiently aggrieved. The Premier League is run incredibly and admirably democratically. The league meets with the clubs frequently and consistently offers referendums on proposed changes put forward by said clubs. Wolves tabled a motion to remove VAR from the English top flight, and the Premier League agreed to vote on it. The vote lost 19-1. Even Nottingham Forest, who for a short time hired former referee Mark Clattenburg as an official referee consultant, voted to keep it. So much for a league-wide refereeing VAR conspiracy then. The clubs clearly don't believe that it exists. Hopefully by now you'll believe me when I say that modern football discourse is simply swamped with reactionary takes, baseless conspiracy theories, a distrust in officials and organisations, and a mass siege mentality in defence of any criticism or opposing thinking that may come your club's way. But so what? Who cares? Maybe for some people that aren't me, this is fun. This is what sport and support is supposed to be about. Maybe joining the echo chamber and having something or someone else to blame other than your team for their recent horrendous performance is a good thing. A comfort blanket to cuddle up on so we don't have to think too much about how you've bottled a league title, slipped out of the European places, or been sent back down to the Championship. But I can't help but feel that it doesn't have to be like this. There can be more to footballing discussion than the current landscape finds itself in. We live in an age of golden football analysis, from the conglomerates like The Athletic all the way through to amateurs posting on X. Wherever you look, you'll find an interesting topic, a thought-provoking data visualization, or an hypothesis you hadn't previously considered. This sort of thing simply never existed in previous eras, and while all of it won't be to everyone's tastes all of the time, I must believe that it's far more interesting material to work with, rather than the tired and worn out rage-baiting shit posts we're currently stuck with. In an ideal world, that's the end of the video. A call to arms for those still listening to take back football discourse, to dispel misinformation, to think critically with balance and nuance and open-mindedness, to reason that sometimes the referee just gets it wrong or the game doesn't go your way, and that's football, to dispel notions of mass corruption amongst officials and officiators where there's no real evidence, to grow up and analyse and evaluate the game beyond the superficial rhetoric that is reposted time and time again without thought, and to do all of this because it's what the beautiful game deserves, and because we can. Unfortunately, that cannot be the ending to this video, because it would be totally disingenuous of me to ask football to do this without acknowledging the real reason of how this has all come to be, without digging a little deeper and exposing the unsightly shortcomings that underpin the game. You see, how can I ask of you to put your faith in referees, to give them respect and the benefit of the doubt, when they are also acting so incompetently to record themselves snorting a white powder at an international tournament? How can I ask you to put your faith in organisations to do the right thing when the very same organisations needlessly expanded the Champions League to placate the big clubs without ever once thinking about the growing fixture schedule? How can I ask you to put your faith in a federation that beamed with pride at a Qatar Winter World Cup and have just handed another to Saudi Arabia? Because this is where the unrest really lies. You aren't upset about the possibility of a corrupt Premier League. That's just the manifestation of a frustration towards a league where astronomical ticket prices that rise year on year are pricing you out of supporting the club that you love. Deep down, you know the league isn't out to get your specific football club and your specific football club only. You're frustrated that the league has allowed the competition to be dominated year after year by an oil-backed government who have pumped money unfairly by the Premier League's own standing into simply buying success. How can I ask of you to shut up about corruption in the Premier League when the organisation who are charging Manchester City with 115 breaches of financial doping are the very same organisation who happily hang the medals around their necks each time they win the league? I think it's truly telling that I have seen far fewer examples of many of the things I've discussed in this video since Manchester City have gone on their torrid run of form after Rodri's injury. Now that Manchester City aren't doing so well, and the concept of a singular club winning England's top flight domestic league 5 times in a row is surely dead and buried, everyone seems a little less set on mentioning their theories about how all the referees are bought off by the United Arab Emirates and that all the referees on purposely officiate a City title rival differently. At heart, none of this was ever truly about a genuine, unwavering belief in the conspiracy theories, the misinformation, and the raging tribalism that is constantly being peddled. Instead, these things are just the symptoms of a modern game that is focused on all of the wrong priorities, and one that has lost its original principles and appreciation of the very fans who built it in favour of the allure of potential foreign markets and a further opportunity to line their pockets. And so, while my frustration towards the state of modern football discourse feels valid, so are the problems with the underlying foundation that has caused it. In much the same way, it's easier to pretend that the reason why the Premier League has been dominated by one team for 4 straight years is because of corruption from the mysterious powers in charge. It's also easier to pretend that the modern game is in safe hands and in good stead, and to simply ignore the glaring red flags. For the last 7,000 words, I've argued that you've got to be seriously deluded to really believe any of this football conspiracy bullshit. But maybe I'm just as deluded to believe that those in charge wouldn't conspire against the sport in the name of profit if given half a chance to do so. Since the internet caught wind of Matt Le Tissier's embarrassing association with Tom Numbers, there has been no repeal or no retraction of his online brand of conspiracy thinking. Even after the monumental clowning received, Le Tissier, despite best appeals, continues with sharing baseless conspiracies. Even as recently as the 27th of December 2024, he can be found reposting tweets questioning the validity of COVID vaccinations. Sounds like you had a good Christmas, Matt. Maybe it was naive of me to think that there would be a turnaround, regardless of the reaction from others, the hit to his reputation, or the appeals from his fans for him to stop. Because once the train has left the station, there's no going back. Once you've felt the warm, comforting feeling of tricking yourself into believing that there's nothing you can do, you're not in control, and that wrongful things only happen because the great, mysterious, omnipotent powers allow them to, then why would you ever give that up? Maybe the same could be said for modern football. Maybe it's too late to go back. What if, deep down, you're just mad that the modern game, while richer and more prosperous than ever, is slowly eschewing the very fans who built it in favour of billionaire owners, rich nation states, and foreign TV markets? No. You see, it's because the league is rigged. The referees are corrupt. All the journalists are paid off to criticise your club. And it's all one big, finely tuned, globally coordinated conspiracy. Now, isn't that much easier to accept?